Okay, so let's just get you set up. Okay, awesome. Should we kind of like kick it off?
Yeah, sure. Why don't you kick it off?
Okay, cool. So, okay, thank you everyone for joining. Just like a quick brief on like how this will work. Essentially, like I'll kind of call on your names. Some of you have listed yourself as participants, so you actually want to present an idea. You'll have like roughly, whatever, 30 seconds to a minute to present. Shu Ken might ask you some, follow-up questions, and after that, he'll kind of give you a quick brief on like, how you can validate your idea without code in under 2 weeks. That's kind of like the trick, right? So we're going to see if that works out. Okay, so I'll start calling on names. I'm not sure how many people are here exactly, but it's fine. We can just start first. Okay, is there a Mark Jason Loizaga? Yes, no? No? Okay. Aram Mukalayan?
Yeah, Aram Mukalayan. It's here.
Okay. Do you want to like put yourself on video and like go for it?
Yeah, can you see me? I'm on.
Yep.
All right, great. You said 40 seconds, right?
It's okay. Just go for it.
All right, no worries. So we are building a Solidate, which is a decentralized Web3 talent marketplace that's helping Web3 startups hire talent. The way we accomplish it is we have a network of people, and every time when there is a job opening on our platform, when someone refers their connection, these people are incentivized with a token. And essentially, we operate as a decentralized DAO. And the interesting thing is that our platform is charging 2 to 3 times less than other headhunters would do. So startups get the same quality talent for up to 3x less. So this is the short page, and we have been working on this for a while. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
No, I think I get it. I mean, I think validating to be a token is kind of like a tricky thing, because like then you have to go build the token, you got to like do all the engineering and all of that kind of stuff. But it seems like you could just validate the idea of like, do people want help hiring kind of like Web3? I'm guessing it's engineers, designers, and all of that kind of stuff, right? Is that the type of jobs?
Correct. Yeah, these usually would be mid to senior level jobs. Typical would be head of engineering, head of growth, head of product, senior blockchain engineer, etc.
Okay, then I think so then you have a two-sided marketplace, and so you need to kind of get both sides, right? So on some level, it's like you could start getting people that are these types of profiles kind of immediately right now. Like you don't need any code or anything. Just start reaching out to them and be like, hey, would you be interested in this? Put them down on a list, that kind of stuff. You could also start selling to the other side, which are the actual Web3 companies, and can be like, hey, I have a kind of like a group of these people, and maybe you can share kind of like some of their profiles and not the emails. Would you be interested? And you can kind of work it that way. And you could actually just manually run the marketplace in the like short term to kind of fill both sides. The interesting thing might be you could actually, okay, this is not a validation thing, but just one hack that you could do to find companies, the company side of this, just look at job postings, right? So just look at all the job postings for like Web3 companies, and if they are for the jobs that you are looking to kind of like fill, go contact them and be like, hey, would you be interested in this, like these candidates or whatever, right? Because they have a need for it. So I would probably start that way. Is like, how many job placements can you do before all of those things kind of happen? And maybe you just record the referrals like somewhere, right? And that will act like your token. You can kind of tell them how it works. It's just that you're not doing it on chain and decentralized and all of that. It's kind of like quite centralized, but you're just testing out the like initial premise of like, are there people who kind of want this kind of thing, and you want people on the other ones? And also you want to test out whether the referral piece is really kind of like powerful or not, right? So if you record, and you're going to have to tell people, you're like, hey, we're going to record this now, but when this goes live and when we actually do it on the like blockchain, then you will be issued tokens on taking a node and kind of like that kind of stuff, and see if that motivate them to give you referrals or not. And so I think you can kind of like trap kind of a lot of these things to like test out the ideas and see how much it goes. Yeah.
All right. Just can I ask one follow-up question quick? So we have been doing some of the things that you mentioned for a while. We even have some paying clients and we've received money. We have closed deals. But one concern that I keep hearing from other people, and I also ask myself, how do I make sure I don't turn into an agency and become a startup? Because I remember you were mentioning in your post that you have to grow like 5%, 10% a week. And given the Web3 ecosystem, we don't really have that growth. How do I make sure that maybe I can make it work as an agency doing things manually, but how do I make sure that it's going to be a startup and not get
this meeting is being recorded.
In this, it's not stuck in this agency.
So I think it's one problem at a time, right? So I think the first step is, do people kind of want even this kind of manualized? You're going to look like an agency in the beginning. Do people want this manualized part, right? And then if people do want that, then you can then you get to grapple with the question of how do I turn this into kind of like a startup, and can I grow the 5 to 7%? Ideally, what you learn through the kind of like agency part of this, where you're kind of working primarily kind of like as an agency, is you are learning enough information there, and that gives you evidence to think that this could work as a product. So for example, if you get the referral thing to really work, that suggests that that might be something that is like, would work as a product, right? If you get clients onboarding and you're just kind of like cold emailing them and stuff, maybe, right? But at some point you're going to need some like self-serve. If you want to validate this even more, you could actually then just start up, I would do the agency part too, but you could also then just start up landing pages for both sides. So just explain what the token is going to do, explain how it's all going to work or whatever, and like see if people will kind of like sign up. And if a lot of people sign up for the landing page part and you're able to kind of connect to the agency side on it, that suggests to me that you have a higher chance of being able to kind of like this being a startup. If you get one, but not the other, then it's a little bit trickier and kind of, but you're always kind of just like de-risking. There's no like guarantees. So
thanks. No, that makes sense.
Cool.
Thanks for the tips.
Yeah, thanks, Arab. Okay, we got Brian up next.
Hey, I don't think I'm next. I think one more guy actually got before me, right?
It's
Rem?
fine, just go for it. I'll put it next.
Okay, Ken. So hi, Hsu Ken. I'm just turning on
Hello.
my camera. So I'm Brian. I've been working on this idea for a couple of days now, but essentially what it does is to get paid in USDT in just 3 steps for LATAM freelancers. The main problem that we're working on is that these LATAM freelancers have very unstable local currencies and often requested to be paid in USD or cryptocurrencies. So what they'll do is to convert their local currencies at best rates by sort of just going through many platforms, and these options are prone to scams and stuff like that. So what we're proposing is a shareable URL that allows LATAM freelancers to get paid in USDT. So this freelancer can specify the amounts and just their wallet address. Once that link is, then we'll generate a link for them. And then once that the link is generated, they can just sort of share it with their client. The client pays in USD, and this amount is automatically converted to USDT, which will credited into their wallet. So the client does not know anything about cryptocurrency for the freelancers to be paid in USDT.
Okay, 2 things you can, I'll give you 2 ways that you can validate this. The first way is you can make a landing page, explain all of this, get signups, blah, 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 whatever. So you can do that normal way, right? And you can run ads, you can try to get people to drive. So you can make a landing page, explain everything that you just said, and see how many people kind of like want this thing. So, okay, that's the easy one. Let's put that out of the way. The almost kind of like validation MVP model of this is you could actually probably start having people use your product definitely within 2 weeks. And here's what I mean. And for everybody on the call, a reminder here is your product is not necessarily the app that you're building. Your product is a solution to a problem that people have. So in your case, they want to get paid in USDT. You need to make sure they get paid in USDT. They don't care how you do that, right? Now, apps tend to be a good solution long-term because they are scalable and they are self-serve. But in the short term, you could actually collect payments on your customer's behalf in USDT and then send it to them in kind of like a whatever way you needed to do it, right? So this is going to sound kind of silly and they got to basically trust you a bit, right? But you can basically give them all kind of your wallet address, and maybe you have them put in some sort of like, I don't know, you need to be able to have some sort of identifier of kind of like who it should be going to. But in the early days, your volume is going to be so little. You'll be lucky if you can get anybody to like give you one transaction like every 2 weeks. Just manually transfer the money, right? And one of the examples that I'll tell, and I think I said this at the last event, just like a quick aside for everybody, we had a payroll company, a Web3 payroll company in one of the other batches. And we got into the batch and they're like, cool, I'm going to build this whole Web3 payroll software. And I said, no, you're not. And basically what I told them, I was like, you should go sell. They tried to go sell. And then they actually got a client who was like, I want to do several million in transactions through your payroll service, which they didn't have. And they were like, oh my God, we have to say no. We don't have the software. And I said, absolutely not. And what we ended up doing was we built them a front end that basically kind of like shows all the transaction records, but the back end was 100% them just transferring money through wallets, right? And then honestly, and does the client care? No, the client got exactly what they were looking for, right? They wanted records of, they wanted their employers paid with crypto. They wanted transaction records of all of those things. They wanted Web3 versions of kind of pay slips of the records. They got all of that. Do you know that your bank isn't transferring the money just by like having somebody run over to the next bank? You don't actually know, right? And frankly, you don't care. I mean, you're a Web3 guy, so you appreciate it. I mean, bank transfers take like 4 days anyway. If they were like taking a slow walk to the bank to hand put it in, I wouldn't be surprised because it's so freaking slow, right?
Yeah.
People don't care. The thing they care about is they want to be able to take payments in USDT and they want to be able to get that to them. So make that happen for them, right? Even if it's just you kind of like doing stuff kind of like manually. So you can just try that, right? By the way, that company to this day is now processing millions in kind of payroll, still has not built that backend because don't need to. Right? They're just like doing it now. Eventually, they're going to have to do it because of scale. But I was joking with the guys. I was like, when you actually have to build this, you should throw a giant party first because you got to a scale where you actually need to build this thing. Then you can like build the thing. But don't worry about it now.
Okay. Wow, that's super smart. Yeah, I definitely will try that out like later
Cool.
way.
Yeah.
Do we need to worry about anything about licensing and stuff like that? In case we get caught or whatever.
This call is technically recorded and going to be on YouTube, and so I do not want to give you any special advice, but let me send you some special advice in chat that is not going to be recorded. Okay. Cool. That's my answer.
Thanks so much. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, awesome. Let us know when you become the custodian of salaries of half of LATAM. We'd be happy to kind of like take you in the batch. Okay, Ram, you are next.
Thanks. Hey, hi Hsu Ken. This is Ram.
Hello.
Yeah, so I'm Ram, founder of QuickiePay. So we are the Venmo, PayPal, and WeChatPay all in one for the Philippines. So we are the first to offer sending money, bills payment, and paying stores in all-in-one mobile app to be charged to the user's credit card directly or other preferred payment methods directly for our users' convenience. So far we have launched our landing page 2 weeks ago, and we have about 250 early signups. And we are targeting 1,000 early signups by 45 days upon launching of the website. So far that's it.
I mean, I feel like you're kind of doing some of the validation already with the like landing page, and for everybody here, landing pages is the like my cop out answer to everything because you can basically do it on every idea. And so I'll challenge myself a little bit, but like everybody can do a landing page. Like it's fine. You guys, just everybody to all of your ideas, you can do a landing page. Okay, wait. So how does the product work? So the idea is that somebody wants to be able to pay for like anything through a credit card.
For example, I'd like to send you money. I'd like to send you money, right?
Yep.
Currently in the Philippines, what we're doing is most of the fintech companies are offering it. You have to load your e-wallet with cash for you to send to other person. But my idea is I can send it through the app without loading the e-wallet with the cash. You can charge it directly to my credit card and sending it to you. That's one. Then the other options is you can, we're gonna onboard partner merchants in the future. You can pay the partner merchant directly for a product without using your actual credit card. You just have to use our mobile app, and it will be charged directly to
Okay.
your credit card.
Wait, let's take one case at a time. You think your first case is going to be, let's say that I'm in the Philippines. It sounds like you are in the Philippines.
Yeah.
You want to send me money, right?
Yes.
And do you want to be able to send me money that charges your credit card?
Yes.
Okay. I mean,
like
a very, yeah. I mean, a stupid hack for this, which is going to be similar to the kind of crypto one. The stupid hack is, and I don't know what the interface could be, but on some level it's like, and I don't know how good Stripe is in Philippines, but let's just say there's a Stripe equivalent. I mean, I guess Paymongo maybe or something like that. But you could almost kind of use, you could almost take somebody's credit card and charge them via Paymongo, and then you transfer them the money, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, let's say Madhu and I are both in the Philippines and you run this company, right? I want to send Madhu money and you give me some UI, I put my credit card in, you are charging my credit card some amount of money, right? However much I want to transfer. And then you are sending money to kind of like Madhu, right?
Yeah.
And so you just need to kind of like do that, right? So just use Paymongo to like charge me and then send Madhu kind of like the money and some other kind of like path or like rail, right? So actually you could almost do this with the existing wallets. You could just load your wallet with like a bunch of money, and then you charge me and my credit card, and then you send from your wallet to Madhu.
Yeah.
Right? That would work.
Okay.
I mean, my experience is I put in my credit card, I got charged. Madhu's experience is I got money.
Okay.
Right? It works. I mean, it's again, roundabout, doesn't scale, blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. But in the early days, like this is a really good case. If I would want to know how valuable is this to people, and I would probably just like pick like 10 of my friends and be like, yo, you guys get access to this. I will basically kind of like send money to like other people for you. Just give me your credit cards, and they'll trust you with their credit cards because they're your friends. And then just keep like a ledger. And maybe it's not real time, right? Okay, the best version of this product is real time, but like maybe it's just not real time where it's like at 12 o'clock and at 6 p.m. every day, you like go through the ledger and you like transfer all the money.
Yeah.
Right? Like maybe that's how you kind of like start out doing it. But I think you can do those kinds of like hacky things. So
Okay. Thanks again. That's a very good suggestion.
Thank you, Ram. All right, we have Vin Lim next.
I think you're muted. Vin.
Oh,
I think you're muted.
Right, sorry. Hi, Ken.
No
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm just going to start with a little bit of a problem statement. More than 65% of the art school graduate did not actually practice art professionally, citing difficulties in making a living from arts itself. So the main thing really comes from the exposure is very hard to come by. Given most platform art galleries are curated and they select a limited amount of participants. Market access is limited to their own circle of friends, their own personal effort, which is tough. And then tech is very hard for them to navigate because trying to.
What does your product do? Just tell me what your product does.
Sure. Our product basically is an artist platform where artists can create, showcase, and sell their artwork in the platform. It's an end-to-end toolkit. Yeah.
Okay. So it's just an easy, is it like a, okay, I'm just going to use derivative products because they're shorthands. Is it like a Shopify for artists? So it's like, hey, I can start my own kind of like online website. I can show my work on it. People can purchase it through the website, that kind of stuff?
Yes, correct. But more importantly, it's to leverage on specifically NFT, where they can create NFTs for the physical artwork and digital artwork that they do not have to have a crypto wallet.
Okay. So I think there's two things that you want to be able to test here. For this product to work, you need to be able to convert artists onto the platform. So you need to be able to get artists kind of to like want to do this. And then you obviously need to get people to purchase through it. That's the other part of this, right? It's like you also are, okay. So you kind of want to do both. The thing that I would start out with is rather than try to get like 100 artists right off the bat, I would just like try to work with like a handful of artists and like do the NFTs for them. Right. So get a handful of artists, set up their websites for them, do the NFT minting, do whatever it is and all that kind of stuff. And then try to see if you can kind of get sales for them on the other side. Right. So if you get 5 artists to kind of do this thing and you can't sell any of the artwork, there's I don't think there's good reason to believe that if you got 100, you could get people to do the artwork, right? So I think it's like
Right.
start small and then try to kind of like do this and try to do the selling part. My hunch is the validation part is mainly going to come from the selling. I think you can probably convince some artists to kind of like do this with you. And so the real thing you want to validate is, do people want to like buy this or not?
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing you're going to want to
I
think
suppose
about.
I should wanted to add in a little bit more information.
Yeah.
We are basically at the stage that we have some form of MVP, and we currently have nearly 400 artists on board, and we have some artwork sold. But the problem for us is that so yes, we get some artists, we get some artwork sold through the platform, but how do we even know it's validated? How do we even know that's
You don't.
right?
You don't.
Right. So how
You
do
don't.
we move from
Look, for everybody that's here, the idea that it's like, oh, if you do X, then you automatically validate your idea. It's not. There's no such thing. There's no X. There's
right?
nothing. There's
So,
no such thing.
in the spirit of validation of a product market fit, how do we know? So we got some.
There's
some
no
form of
definition of
tractions.
product market fit. I wrote this like post on it. There's no definition of product market fit. There's no definition of validation. There's none.
Right.
This is what kind of entrepreneurship is like. You kind of take risk, right? So there's no amount of thing that you could like. I wish I could give you a test that was like, oh, if you can pass this test, you're going to be worth $1 billion. Though it doesn't exist.
Gotcha.
Right. Even the companies that have like are worth $1 billion are not worth $1 billion forever, right? So there's no thing here, right?
Right.
And so if your question is around kind of like, hey, how do I know that I validated this thing you don't know? I've had products with millions of users, and I don't think they ever had product market fit.
Right. Okay.
And so I don't think
gotcha.
there's like a way to kind of do this. Maybe just to be helpful for you, and we can kind of go to the next one. The thing that you want to look at, especially for somebody who's kind of has some products kind of going, are you growing quickly or not? This is separate from validation. I'm kind of in product market fit, guys. So like, okay, let me do a definition here. Validation for me is the stage that people are before they quit their job, and they're trying to kind of figure out if this idea is worth working on or not. So you're like gathering enough evidence such that, hey, it's worth it for me to quit my job and go work on this thing, right? So that's how I think about validation. That's my definition of validation. There's no uniformly kind of like agreed upon one. Product market fit is the thing after you kind of quit your job, where you're like, I have made the plunge. I'm trying to make this thing work now. Like, let's go. To me, product market fit, oftentimes people are looking at kind of like growth. And if I'm being kind of like more nuanced here, it's growth and retention together. If you have high growth and you have crappy retention, you're probably really good at getting people on your product, but your product doesn't help anybody. And if you have really high retention and really bad growth, it's like, okay, your product is useful for like a small number of people. Neither of those things are like particularly interested, at least for venture capital startups. There's lots of reasons why it's actually a pretty good business, right? So what you're looking for is high growth, high retention. And so in your stage, that's the thing that I would be looking at is like, are you growing 5 to 7% every week? And that's what we work with companies on the batch with. And for a frame of reference, 5 to 7% a week means if you grow 5% a week for a year, you have 12.6x your business. And if you grow 7% every week for a year, you will 33x your business. That's like roughly the kind of speed we're looking for. If you are very early stage, you should be growing actually faster than that. And if you're later stage, probably slower. If you can grow that quickly and your retention curves are like healthy, and I say healthy because retention curves are very different depending on the industry, then you're probably onto something, but different than kind of like validation.
All right, we got you. Thanks, Ken. Thanks
Cool.
for doing this.
Yeah. Thank you, Vinland. Okay, we got Rafael next.
Hi. Yeah, I will. First, can you actually hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. I think I might be a slight misfit for this now, having heard how you describe validation, but I'll have to talk very quickly. So I run a company called Vulcan Augmetics, and our goal is to build an ecosystem for assistive technology targeted at emerging markets. Essentially, we want to be the gateway between the human body and hardware. So anytime you want to put tech on your body, whether you're disabled or doing it for sports or monitoring, whatever, you'll come to us, we'll explain to you what the process looks like, connect you with a clinic, make sure you get the right product, and we provide the machine learning powered sensor control systems for all these different brands that are on our marketplace. Now, my question here is not so much how we validate as what we should be validating, because step one is we start off with our own initial product, which is a robotic prosthetic hand, like most affordable in the world. build the sensor system on that, use that to sell to our initial users, build up market trust. From there, we build an online shop and marketplace. We onboard other brands, and we also start selling those to users. Then we integrate our sensor systems with those other brands and expand internationally. And so the end goal is to, we're going to be both acting as the gateway for the supply and demand ends of the industry. And also because we'll have all these users and we're putting our sensor technology on them, we can get vast amounts of training data from machine learning and sell that to other companies. Now, we validated a lot of this. Like we've made and we sold the prosthetic. It works. People love it. We've made the sensor system and we have people who are interested in integrating that to their products. We've made the marketplace, and at the moment, like what you said, it's all manual. The back end is very, very done by hand. And yeah, we're looking at expanding to the next country. But the challenge is like investors look at us and they seem to struggle to see, like they look at us and they see prosthetic hands, which is a tiny market. And they don't, like, it's very hard for us to validate and show them that how this step one gets to this big end goal or vision or market. Everyone just sort of laser focuses on prosthetics. And no matter how much else we build and validate and show them that we've got the marketplace, we've got the sensor technology, it works across industries, it's fancy and shiny, like we're not really sure what we should be validating here to show them that this idea is viable.
Okay, I think there's okay, there's a lot in what you said. And let me try to kind of like, this is, and for everybody here, I think this is, let me kind of frame it. So this is a different kind of validation, but you know, in the spirit of kind of being helpful, and I think it could potentially be helpful to people. This is a different form of validation. So this is a validation that comes with kind of like companies kind of like past the kind of like the stage that we kind of typically are talking about. And this is like a validation of like, we have done pretty well in an existing market, and we now need to be able to show that we can expand into this additional market. And we need to have, and this is part of the reason why there's no such thing as like, oh, you're like validated and you're like done with validation. Look, guys, he's doing validation all over again, kind of just at the next cycle, right? Because he's got to prove that he can kind of work at this like other kind of like size or scale or whatever. So you're constantly finding validation when you're working on a startup, and you're constantly finding product market fit, right? So you're never done with these things. It's actually a telltale sign to me that a founder typically is like not thinking about things properly when they say they're like, we have product market fit. And I'm kind of like, maybe for like your initial user set, but then you're going to expand into another user set and you need to find product market fit over. Good. Okay. I'm going to kind of, I have to give you kind of like a more general kind of like less nuanced kind of answer, just the format and all this kind of stuff, right? So I'm saying this up front because I think the real answer probably requires some amount of time to kind of like dig in what's actually happening and all of that kind of stuff. But let me try to give you the general one, just in case that like that one is kind of helpful, and you can email me if you want the more specific one. I think the general one is, okay, so if you've done well in an existing market, then I think people want to kind of see that there's like fast growth in that market, or you've kind of saturated it or something, right? And so you have to be able to kind of demonstrate that that exists, that kind of like has happened. And then if you want to be able to expand into a secondary kind of like market, let's just say more broadly, whether that is geographic, different type of use case, whatever, they're all just different markets depending on how you slice them. The thing that we typically tell our companies, especially when they're fundraising, and how to think about this is, you need to be able to tell some story or thesis around why this is the next logical step, and they really kind of like need this thing, right? And so you want to be able to paint that story. It sounds like you've been trying to kind of do that. The two pieces that make that story believable and stick with investors is these following two things. One, does that story include some user insight or some insight about the market that is either very few people know or very few people will believe? And the reason why that is because if it's something that everybody already knows or everybody already agrees, then it should have already happened before. And so oftentimes investors are like looking for a founder who like has some unique insight into a space that nobody else kind of like sees, or I don't know, everybody else just like doesn't believe in. And if that insight, if you have that insight and everybody else is wrong and you end up being right, you basically win an outsized pot. And here's what I mean. Maybe Airbnb is kind of the canonical example of this. I would never have thought that people wanted to stay in other people's homes. Never in a million years. Everybody thought that was dumb. Except for these 3 guys in San Francisco who ended up being right, and now they're all billionaires, and we're all sitting on the Zoom call, right? And if everybody believed that, then that idea would not have been as valuable. So it's almost kind of like you want to be contrary. Peter Thiel's not that popular of a guy, but I think maybe he said this. It's like, you don't want to be contrarian about everything. You want to be contrarian a few amount of things, and you better be freaking right, right? So if you pick one thing to be a contrarian about, and you are right, you are a big contrarian, and you are right about that thing, you get outsized return. Nobody ever kind of made very much money, if you want to calculate things in that way, on believing what everybody else thought, right? Like, you make pretty good, right? So what is that kind of insight for you? And then the second piece to make it more believable is, do you have initial traction to show that it's likely true? If you paint me this like grand story about how, I don't know, flights to Mars are the next biggest thing, and that's the thing that you should be investing in, and all of that kind of stuff, and I say, hey, how many flights to Mars have you sold? And you said 0. I'd be like, well, it's a nice story. It just doesn't sound correct, because you can't get anybody to buy a flight to Mars. So why do I believe that people want to fly to Mars? If you are really onto something, and you are probably right, there's at least a small number of people who seem to kind of want to do that thing, and that group is hopefully kind of like opening up like often, all the time, right? So again, kind of the kind of just wild example of this is like, let's say you're in the desert and you're like, hey, people really want water, and it turns out, and you're like, what's going to make that really believable is like people are just lining up for water, right? And so it's like, you need to be able to tell the story. That story needs to have some unique insight that gets investors to kind of sit up and be like, okay, wow, I haven't heard this before. And then you need to be right, and you need to be able to share evidence that it is likely right by doing that. If you do just the story and no evidence, then it looks like the story is not true. If you do a story and have some traction, but no kind of like unique kind of insight to it, then it just looks like not as lucrative of a kind of like thing to build around. So I don't know if that's helpful to you, but that's the generalized kind of like maybe like approach here.
I think it is. I mean, some of that we've tried. The contrarian, like believe something that's contrarian is a good one to go with, but the problem is that if it's that contrarian, then VCs don't believe you either. So if I tell them we can do the business this way, they're like, oh, no, you can't. Yeah, all right.
By the way, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. And what I mean by is, most of these contrarian ones, just like Airbnb, I mean, 100 and something investors turned down Airbnb, but you got to be able to convince one of them to kind of believe it. And if you can't convince any investor to kind of believe in it, you then sometimes have to start looking at your position where you're like, okay, the average investor, okay, maybe so smart, whatever, right? 150 investors, they all don't believe you? Really? Right? That's like, I guess maybe the joke here is, it's like you sometimes have this friend who's been in like 30 relationships with horrible girlfriends or boyfriends. And at some point you like go to your buddy and you're like, yo, I think it's you. Like, you've been in 30 relationships and they're all horrible. Like, you got to start looking in the mirror a little bit, right? So I think there's like a bit of that where you want to be able to kind of like look in the mirror and be like, oh, okay, we're talking to some pretty smart people. Like, why are they not getting it, right? And look, maybe you're just smarter than all of them. It does happen, right? So I don't know. But Madhu, I think we should kind of like move on.
Let's go.
Yeah, I'm taking enough time. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Rafal.
Thank you.
Okay, we got KL next. I hope I'm saying your name correct. I apologize.
Yeah, it's KL from KL actually.
Wow,
So,
that is awesome.
so I'm from Together. Basically, we are building a new generation Web3 global rewards and membership solutions. So a little bit about Together. Originally, we are a Web2 company that we built a lot of membership CRM system for retail chains, shopping malls, departmental store. So as you can see, the traditional retail chains, the reward system is you get point get expired. You can use in one country in silo. So what we're doing is that we're building the Web3's reward system where you can interchange with everyone, anybody, cross industry. Right now we're building on Near protocol. Basically, it's like a spend to earn model for the communities. So basically, you just spend using fiat or credit card, and then you get your blockchain rewards in returns. And with that, then you can spend across our ecosystem, regardless of demographic. There's no boundaries, and it's cross industry, whether it's travel, events, ticketing, and so on. So in Malaysia, we have on board the Malaysia Retail Chain Associations, but it's still in the Web 2. But once we talk about crypto and blockchain, then it's kind of like scared everybody out, you know. So we are thinking how we can validate this. As far as the user base, it's a community-driven rewards. So look at Shopback rather than individual cashback, you get a group community rewards, you know. So that's the model that we're doing.
Hey, does it work in Web 2?
It does work. In Web 2, we have a dual token. So one is internal coins where you can spend within the ecosystem, and then we have an asset token where we're gonna list on like coin store or something that will increase in value. So now your rewards will never get expired, and there's a chance that you can stick it for more perks and increase in value.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. My question is like we should scope what you want to validate. Is the thing you want to validate like we want to validate a Web3 version of this, or you want to validate this like business idea? Because to me, it's like the Web2 version of this that you've already built should be kind of like validation of kind of like, do people need this thing or not? Like, and maybe this is helpful for people. I don't really do that much of a distinction between Web 2 and Web 3 when it comes to kind of like validating ideas. At the end of the day, I'm kind of a purist. We are all technologists. We build tools. We build tools to help human beings solve problems. I don't care whether that's Web 2, Web 3, or you do it out of like a notepad, right? Like our job is to kind of like build stuff that helps people. Now, Web 3 sometimes allows you to build products that you could not build in some other kind of like fashion, right? There are some products that are like uniquely kind of like Web3 has this decentralized property that kind of allows it to kind of do things that maybe other kind of products do, not always the time and whatever and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think about it that way. So is your question like you want to test it specifically on Web3?
I would call it Web 2.5. I mean, when we talk about Web 2, the idea is validated already. But once we say global, because we instead of like going right now we're putting enterprise grade to larger clientele, but we want to skip the SaaS model and offer it for free. But you know, with Web3 and smart contract, then we can scale out, you know, tremendously. So so a lot of investors ask us why do you want to put in the crypto and the Web3 element in it? Why can't you just run your retail tech and your Web2? You know, so that's the questions that we try to validate.
Yeah, I think, okay, I think we, Madhu, I think we need to have a tighter scope on what kind of validation is. Because I feel like this can turn into any number of kind of like, ask Hsu Ken what's going on with your startup and he gives you advice on it. I don't think what you're asking for is really validation, if I'm being honest, right? I think you're like trying to get into this Web3 thing, investors kind of asking you questions and you're trying to be like, how do I answer these questions? Which I think is separate from this. So in the interest of time, and just because of the scope of that, KL from KL, I'm from Penang. I put my email in the chat. Why don't you email me and I can help you with your specific question? But like, Madhu, let's try to keep this to specific validation. I want to be helpful to people. So I'm not trying to kind of shut people off. Email me with kind of your questions and then I can help there. But just in kind of the interest of like, giving this somewhat kind of in the same way. So KL, email me and I'll try to help you out.
All right.
Okay, Madhu.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Christian, you're up next. Let's try to keep this tight. Sorry, there's a lot of people left. Sorry, Christian, I don't think we can hear you.
By the way, Madhu, we should just do different versions of this. We should have a like, investors keep telling me this, or investors don't get this. What do I do? That could be a whole thing. It could be like a, my startup is not growing fast enough. What do I do thing? Like, we could do like a million of these.
Sure.
Okay.
Hey, Christian, can you, I'm not sure we can hear you. No, right? I can see you speaking to the mic. Yeah, now we can hear you.
Yeah, you guys can hear me?
Yep.
Sorry about that.
Nice.
So my name's Christian. Good to meet you guys. Hsu Ken, awesome, loving all your insights. We're building a decentralized peer-to-peer platform to help people on and off ramp crypto to cash. There's plenty of peer-to-peer platforms out there. Most of them, the majority of them are centralized. And obviously there's custodial risk. I think trust in custodial platforms are super low. We've got a beta platform out there. We've got a small group of friendlies that are testing the customer side to off-ramp. We charge 2%, unlike most peer-to-peer platforms that will just bake their fee into the spread. Where we're struggling is trying to get P2P merchants. So normally the traders that are bringing liquidity, and I'm struggling to find a way to attract them. They tend to be a close group of people that don't want to make themselves known. I need to find a way to validate whether they'd be interested in the platform, not for the spreads, but for the a revenue share where we'll cut them in on the commission. If we charge 2%, we'll give them up to 50% depending on the volume. It's pretty much that simple. We do token referrals, rewards, discounts, etc.
Okay, very cool. By the way, I think we have some companies that are kind of working in similar spaces. Okay, so this sounds to me almost kind of like a to generalize it kind of like outside, it's almost kind of like a B2B kind of like sales thing, right? Where it's like, hey, we got to go find out these people, we got to get them on board, we got to do this stuff. So I think there's two steps to this. One is you got to be able to kind of like, in order to kind of validate in typical B2B sales, you need to kind of be able to get in front of them first. So, I mean, you got to be able to like reach them, have a conversation with them, and nothing happens if you don't solve that problem, right? So that's kind of the first step. And then obviously the second step is, can you convert any of them, right? So the validation is basically, can I reach these people and can I convert these people? Okay. Maybe ideas for kind of like the first part, and then the second part kind of like falls from that. The first part, typically for these kind of like early stage, especially when you're starting out, they tend to be kind of like warm introductions. And so I'm sure you've tried to tap this out, but just it's worth saying, like, do you have friends who are kind of like into these groups, and can they do introductions for you and all of that kind of stuff, right? So that's kind of the first way to do it. The other thing that we've seen, is specifically for like Web3 communities too, is, and I don't know if what the people you're targeting, like, do they have like Discords or anything like that? Anything way that you can kind of like reach them or kind of like get access to them? We've had a number of companies try to do basically kind of like reach out to, it was more kind of like tokens and kind of protocols and stuff, and they just kind of do sales through Discord DMs and like that kind of stuff. And so there's like a version of it that is like that. I don't know how heavy like LinkedIn is on the type of people you're going into, whether they even do that. But typical B2B sales moves, you can kind of like do quite a lot there, but Web3 kind of exists kind of like outside of that a little bit. And so that one's a little bit tricky. But you can automate LinkedIn outreach. There's some tools that you can do to kind of like automate that. And so we've kind of like gone pretty deep with that before. And so I think those are some ways to kind of reach out to people, but I think that's like the primary validation is like, hey, how do you get in front of these people first, and try to do that? If you can't get in front of any of these people, the next question I would ask myself, and maybe this is further along from you, is like, who can I get in front of? Like, are there other people who potentially could be interested in this that maybe I should like be talking to, right? As like another set. And so maybe I would like think about that. So maybe it's the first step as to how do you get in front of these people. Validating, once you actually are able to get in front of these people, we have our companies do this all the time. Basically, your version of landing page is your sales pitch, right? Or like how you talk to them, right? And so, and this takes some number of kind of like calls, but if you get on like 20 calls with people, we sometimes split it up and we're like, first 5 calls, I pitch our company this way. Like I talk about this is the benefit, or I change the pricing structure, I don't know, whatever it is, but you can change whatever you want. Next 5, okay, change some other set. Okay, next 5, some other set. And I kind of just like see what people respond to. I sometimes think startups they're over precious about pricing or structure. You can make whatever you want in the beginning, right? Charge this guy this way, charge this guy this way, have a different agreement. It's all good. You do whatever you want, right? And the thing we're typically looking for when we're kind of validating is there like a quick sales cycle? If it's a long sales cycle, that means people have to like think about it and they're debating it. It's like, okay, something's in the way. And then on the call, sometimes we can kind of like we can almost tell, because if you do different pitches, there's always one part of the call, if you're onto something, where you like say something and everybody kind of like leans in. They're like, hey, can you tell me more about that? Right. And you're kind of looking for those moments of somebody being like, okay, wait, what is this? Right. I'm sure people have done sales pitches with you before. You like, it's a 30-minute call and you're kind of like sitting, you're kind of drinking water, you're like not that paying attention, right? And it's like, if they say something that's kind of interesting, they like sit up. So we're like looking for those moments. And then we validate those moments by like saying that same thing to kind of other people and seeing if we're getting a similar response and all of that stuff. So I think we think about it in like kind of those two buckets. How do I get in front of these people? And then how do I test value propositions, business models, and all that stuff kind of like on the calls? Yeah, I don't know if that helps.
No, it helps. It helps. It gives me a kick in the right direction.
Okay, cool.
Thank you. Okay, Beatrice, you're up next. And we're getting like more and more people adding their names to the list. I think you can't go for dinner anymore.
Dude, I got an 8:30 reservation. So yeah.
Okay, Beatrice, I think you're up next.
So hey everyone. So our idea is basically a consumer to consumer startup where it enables anyone anywhere to be your personal shopper. So for example, you have a trip like in the US and you want to buy and you have a friend who wants to buy like an item. Usually what people do is like they would tell that friend to buy it for them, right? Because the person is in the US. And sometimes like the friend in the US would charge like a fee on top of the actual item. So we're trying to make that like model accessible for anyone. Yeah.
Okay, so the idea is that friends can buy stuff in other countries for their friends?
Yeah, if you have like a flight, like you can post your details.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. By the way, I've heard of startups that try to do this before. So I've seen this thing before. Look, I think this is like a. Okay, here's a funny. Okay, there's a couple of different ways you can test this. Let me say the funny thing first. The funny way that you can test this is you could actually say that there's somebody that's going from. Does it need to be friends or can it be anybody?
It can be anybody.
Okay. So the funny hack that you can do here is you can actually like make a website and you can say these people are like, and pick easy places like, oh, somebody's going to Thailand. Who wants to buy stuff from Thailand? And like whatever. And this is the funny part, just as a check. If you get a sufficient number of orders for somebody from Thailand, you go to Thailand, right? But I think the trick is you can just list the website that you're faking that you have inventory and supply, which is people going to these places. And then people will kind of like react to that. And you can see if that generates kind of like demand, right? And if it doesn't, and you can pick a cutoff point, but if at some point it looks like it's not, and somebody kind of like asked to kind of like buy something, you should obviously tell them that like, hey, sorry, they decided not to go. You kind of like let them know and that kind of stuff. But I would basically start a website and be like, there is 3 to 5 people going to these countries. Tell me if you want stuff from those countries, and then see what you kind of like get back from people. And if those things are overloaded, as in people like you just get a crazy amount of responses, then you're likely probably kind of like onto something. And if you don't, then you likely are probably not. And then you can actually go a step further and you can like actually fly to that place and buy all those things for all those people and like come back, right? As like a test. The reverse case too, if you don't want to fly to those places, is I'm sure you have lots of friends. You can try to see if any of your friends are going to do it and then are going to go, and then you can kind of like piggyback off that, right? So I think you're bootstrap the supply, which are people going to these countries, to test the demand is the trick. And then you could actually do the reverse sometimes too, where you could probably like bootstrap the demand and then see if you can get the supply. But I would fake one of the sides and then try to see what you get on the other side.
All right. Thanks so much.
Cool.
Okay, Jin, you're up next.
Hi, thank you, Madhu. Hi, Ken. So
Hello.
our idea is to solve gifting, basically from knowing what your recipients want all the way until the part where it makes gifting easier. So how it will work is the idea is when we register, all of our address will be saved privately. And if I want to buy a gift for Madhu, I can view Madhu's wish list. And we can also use AI to recommend on some of the things that Madhu wants based on your career. And then I can easily buy for Ken or Christian or even Beatrice by just clicking what they like and click send.
Okay, wait, sorry. So it's a gifting thing, and it's like Madhu puts in what gifts he would like, and then I can go onto that list.
Correct. But since we are targeting like to make gifting easier, that includes also gathering the sellers who sells unique items. So kind of like at Etsy, where we create a bit of sellers who sells unique items as a gift.
Okay. So I mean, I think it's like you could just try this with like a few users, right? I mean, I think it's like, can you get people to kind of like make these lists? That's like step one, right? Can you get people to make these lists? And you don't actually need to talk to any of the Etsy sellers or retailers or any of that kind of stuff, right? Because I mean, if they actually want it, you can just go buy it. But it seems like you can just like, does anybody want to make these? Okay, you can do the landing page thing or whatever, but if you want to go a step further, you can actually just like get friends to kind of make these lists and see if they're going to make like the list, and then see if they're going to send it out to their friends and kind of do it. You don't have to make it all self-serve right now. I mean, you could do this actually outside after, like you could do this out with a Notion page. Like I would just email like 50 of my friends and be like, yo, who has a birthday coming up? And everybody who replies with a birthday, I'd be like, cool, here's the list of things that you can put on this like gift registry, pick 5. And then they pick 5, and then you can kind of like, you can just do this whole thing for them. Like you could honestly make a registry page for Madhu, right, on Notion, which is like, Madhu wants these 5 things, and it just like all shows up there. It's all from that thing. And then does anybody actually like buy those things for Madhu, and you can track it that way. And so, but I think the primary thing here, the most important part of this business that you want to validate is that people are going to want to use it and create lists on it. If they do that, then they will send it to their friends. And so that's like less of a worry. But if nobody creates lists, nothing happens on your product, right? Okay. And actually for these gift registries, people creating lists and sending it to their friends is the growth strategy. It always has been the growth strategy. Get people to make these lists, get them to send it to their friends. Their friends, next time they have a gift thing, they think about it, and then they like sign up for the thing, then they send it to their friends, and then they send it to their friends, and so on and so forth. So the biggest thing you need to validate is, do people want to make these lists, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So do it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Cool.
Okay, we got Giang next. But before that, Hsu Ken, take a quick look at the chat, because this is something we discussed. Brian,
I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
I'm not going to do it. And here's the reason why I'm not going to do it. People always kind of ask me this, and I think one of the things that I'm trying to do with this session is I want to be helpful, right? I want to help people with their ideas, and I want this to be a safe place. I've been in your shoes before, and pitching an idea and having somebody grade it is like, can oftentimes not feel great, right? Like I've pitched a lot of ideas that a lot of people thought were stupid, and like it didn't make me feel very good about myself. And so I don't want people, I want to be able to help people. And so I want people to be able to talk about their idea without the fear of kind of like judgment. And so I mean, if you guys have heard me through this entire call, I've had no comments about any of these ideas. I haven't said whether any of them are good. I haven't said any of them bad. I haven't said you got to watch out. I haven't said any of that, right? And this is like very specific because it's like, I don't want this to be a place where people's ideas are kind of like judged and graded and all that kind of stuff. So obviously I have to do that professionally as kind of an investor, but like I'm not doing it here. So my only job here is to like help you guys as much as possible. It is not to like give some score. And by the way, investors are wrong all the time. Even if I gave you a score, I'm probably wrong most of the time and I'm being dumb about something, right? So like, even if I give you a score, like, don't worry too much about it, right? And I say this in our kind of emails to kind of when we pass on investing and stuff, it's like, look, it's just my opinion. I don't know any better than anybody else. Like, don't take it to heart, like kind of like too much. Sometimes I think founders think investors are like all knowing. They're not, I'm not, like just regular people trying to kind of like think about stuff. So don't. Okay.
Okay, Kiang?
We only have a couple more minutes.
Man, yeah, but we got like 10 people left on the list.
Yeah.
Hi, Ken. Hi, everyone. So we are doing a wallet, a Sandbox wallet with embed the apps, simplify onboarding through social login. So we remove the seed phrase and using a unified cross-chain interface. So we remove the orders of the people have to always choose a blockchain network before they entering and interacting with other like digital assets. And we offer like, so for that, we offer a seamless experience for a new Web3 users. And this allows for like possibilities for buildings on wallets and for like other like Web2 apps to be on the, like to onboard on the world of Web3. So with our product, we have like two stakeholders that we think of is end users and also like builders. So the builders here, we have like both like Web 2 and Web 3 have to acquire. So I mean, the approach is like of course we need to get them both, but at the first phase, we in the 5th week of the product. So at the first phase, we're thinking of to target the Web3 builder first, like, I mean, in the ratio, like more focus on them, and the Web2 user at the same time, Web2 developers at the same time. So how do you think about that approach? And is it like a valid point to really tackle the developer first instead of the users? Because that's our current approach to think about. And yeah.
Okay, is this a validation question? Is the question like whether you should be tackling one of the other, or how do you kind of validate one of these sides?
Well, actually, to be precise, like we actually thinking of all of them are very important, but like in terms of ordering. So we think about like having to tackle the Web3 and Web2 builder first, but like still wondering, is it like a correct, a correct way to start, as your opinion?
I mean, hard to say here. I feel like you're not asking me kind of like how to validate something. You're asking me kind of like, should you do X or Y, right? Which is like a different thing here. And so I think my reaction to that is like, I'm not sure. My answer, what I would do if I were you is I would just find low cost ways to test both sides, right? Like, how could you kind of like low cost test both sides? Typically, if you have a two-sided kind of like thing, one side is more valuable than the other. I've actually never heard of a two-sided thing where one side was equally valuable. And so what I would do is I would try to figure out if there's a low-cost way to test both sides. And if there is not, I would try to pick whichever side you think is more valuable than the other side. And I would try to test that. You could be wrong, it's fine, whatever, right? But like I would at least try to have an opinion on that. If you're trying to sell kind of like builders, then that's going to be more B2B sales, kind of direct sales kind of stuff, right? You're going to have to like find these people, you're going to have to talk to them, that kind of thing. If you're doing consumers, it's probably some sort of kind of like landing page targeting and like that kind of thing. So I think there's different methods, but I would try to figure out if I can do both. And if you can't do both, then I would try to figure out which side is more important and then focus on that side.
Yeah, okay, which is actually what we're currently doing now, but yeah, that's valid.
Thank you. Okay. We maybe have time for like one last one. Roy?
Hi. Yeah, you can hear me correctly?
Yep.
All right. So I co-founded Synapses some months ago. Basically, what we do is data animation. You bring in your data, and or a report, and we are able to bring it into a presentation with animations or a video output, right? This right now, up until this point, has been very labor intensive because there's no actual tools for it, right? I've been working for free and like putting it out there for some companies and for some academic projects, and it's been well received in terms of like the comments for now. No one has been put any money, right? So right now, of course, anyone can say they agree to it. Before I move into the development of the actual tool, I want to validate the idea of like, okay, people have said it looks good, it's a great product. How do I get in front of those people? Like where do I start before moving to development?
Why don't you just charge people? Just start charging people. You're giving it away for free. Just start charging people. Right? Just, yeah, charge people. Like the best validation of whether something is going to work is charge people, right? That's better than asking them if they like it or whatever, like all that kind of stuff. Just start charging people. It seems like you can actually produce these things, right, without the software anyway. Right?
Yeah, it's quite labor intensive though. So it's like if you want to scale it eventually,
yeah,
the software will be able to like the only way to go.
Yeah, but the thing you're trying to validate now is, will people pay money for this? Not whether like it's labor intensive or not, right?
Yeah.
Like if I would just start charging people money. And if you believe that whatever your product is, you can build it in software, I would just start charging money and get as many clients as possible until the point where you can't handle them anymore. Then you should build a product, right? Or you should try to kind of find ways to like cut it. But again, your product is not the app. Your product is people want this thing, charge money for that thing, and then kind of like see, right? So start charging money, I think is the easy call here.
Right. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Hsu Ken, I think
I'll do maybe 2 more.
Okay, Tanvi, you're next. Are you online?
Hello. Sorry. Can I be heard?
A little bit. It's a little bit in and out.
Sorry. Hello.
Yep.
Hello.
Okay, great. I'm so glad I got a chance to present as well. So my idea is it's a physical product, unlike a lot of the earlier ideas. It's a plant tower that speeds up the air purification of process of plants. So we are mainly aiming to do it as a B2B service, and like the technology itself has already been validated and it works to like remove pollutants, remove dust, carbon dioxide in indoor spaces. But we want to know like validate which are the specific types of offices we should go towards, or whether they will even consider this as a viable option compared to air purifiers.
Yep. I think that's a pretty straightforward one. You basically need to do B2B sales, right? Yeah. So the way that I would approach this is rather than just like blanket everybody and try to sell your thing, what do you think are the 3 types of people that would want this the most, right? So are you selling to like, I don't know, co-working spaces or office buildings or companies themselves, or like who are these customers? So start with the customer, figure out who these customer personas are, basically, what the problem is that you solve for them, and like which 3 are the you think have this problem that you solve the most, like it's the most painful for them. And then basically find people in each of these buckets and go talk to them and try to kind of sell your product. You don't have an existing physical product yet, or does it already exist?
We have a prototype, but the problem is each prototype is very expensive to make.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Actually, in the beginning, okay, this is going to sound ridiculous. In the beginning, your job is not to try to figure out whether you can make money. Profitably. And what I mean by that profitably is you want to find out if anybody wants your thing. Look, it's manufacturing. If you get to some reasonable amount of scale and you have enough kind of resources, you can lower the cost of manufacturing that thing up to a certain amount. So, I mean, I don't know. If it's something that costs $100,000 now and you're selling it for $100, okay, you're probably not going to get it that low, right? But if it's within reason, the thing you want to find out is just who will pay for this thing? Can I sell any of them to them? And how much will they pay for it, right? And so even if you are selling these prototypes to them at cost, it's fine initially. You just want to know if people will pay for it, right? And so I would just start reaching out to each of these groups. Now for you, I think it's pretty straightforward. Most of these people are on LinkedIn. And so there's a lot of like, just start cold messaging and messaging people on LinkedIn, and just like trying to talk to them, try to find people's emails. Like you just kind of do the hustle of kind of like B2B sales. And then I think similar to kind of like Christian, reach out to a few of these, try different value propositions. And the thing you're trying to figure out is who should I be selling my product to? And what is the like problems that they have, and what is my value proposition for that thing, and will anybody actually purchase this thing, right? So I think it's actually pretty straightforward. You don't have to have it all in stock or whatever, just start selling it to them.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Cool. Yep.
Okay, we have Eugene next. Eugene?
I think you're muted, Eugene.
Hey, Hsu Ken and everyone. So I'm Eugene and I'm building OnTrueSell. OnTrueSell is a marketplace that connects lifestyle brands such as like fitness studios, art classes, music class providers with people who may be interested in finding out about these classes. So the problem you're trying to solve is, let's say as a person who's looking for art classes, for example, the 2 options available would be to source information through Google or to hear from word of mouth. The issue of searching for these brands on Google is that the information is all over the place. So let's say if you have very specific needs, say you are sending your kids to art classes, right? And your kids are, say, they're 3 years old, for example. You want to be sending your kids to a 3-year-old art class because a 3-year-old art class is very different from a 6-year-old art class, for example. The issue with Google is that all this information is all over the place. So you need to click on, you need to go to many different clicks, and most of the time you don't know where to click on. So potential customers are spending a lot of time just searching for the specific information that they need to help with their buying decision. The other issue as well is that when it comes to searching for these brands on Google, it's always the first few brands like who pumping a lot of money to sponsor ads or who have very good SEOs that are appearing on the top.
I'm gonna skip ahead because I think I understand what your thing is. Look, it's pretty straightforward here. Just make the guide for everybody, right? So if you're trying, I think where you're going is I want to have a tool that specifically lists the art classes that are for kind of like 3-year-olds versus 6-year-olds versus 9-year-olds versus whatever, and that you want to be able to have some sort of vetted kind of process so you know these classes are good or something, right? Something along those lines. You can actually just do all that work right now, right? Like you could make your own list of like, here are the like best 3 kind of art classes for 3-year-olds. Here's the best 3 classes for kind of 6-year-olds. You can do all of that right now. So do that work. You can put it together on kind of like, I don't know, some no code thing. You could even do it on Notion and then find out how many people actually just like look at this thing, right? And so if you do all the work for people and you get it in the hands of parents and parents are sharing it around and like, let's say you shared it with like 50 of your friends and you look at the visits and it's like now at 5,000 or something, it obviously was shared around to other friends, right? But if you send it to 50 friends and your number of visits is 10, okay, maybe not as much, right? Or you could even try paid ads to it or whatever, but like the actual product that you're making is like just recommendations. And so you can actually do all the work and you can make it even better than any kind of automatic results. So to me, it's like, if you were putting this together yourself, you're going to come up with a better product than any software can kind of like build for you. So if people don't want your handcrafted recommendations, they're not going to want your like self-automated kind of recommendations. So prove that people want the best version of this right now. And then if people do want that, then all of the only trick you have left to do is how do you make these recommendations in a somewhat kind of automated fashion with software, which is a much simpler problem to solve once you kind of like know that people want this thing, but you need to figure out if people want this thing. So just put it together now, just do it, right? And do it for some kind of like, I don't know, if you don't have to do it for everywhere, just do it for some whatever town you're in and see if people are interested in that, right? And if people are interested, you can try it for another town. And then at some point you can kind of like build it out. But I would just try that way.
Thanks for these insights, Ken.
Okay, last one, Marcus.
Hi, Ken.
Hello.
I'm Marcus.
Yep.
And I'm working on Goop, which is a platform for creative collaborations. And we match organizations or brands to illustrators to create exclusive merchandise. So, so far, we've performed some validation and kickstarted some campaigns with nonprofits pretty scrappily through manually matching WhatsApp chats and all.
Yep.
And we found out that the campaigns have fared pretty decently. So we kind of know we have something. But the thing is that because we are building a 3-sided platform between the illustrator, nonprofit, and consumer, we're afraid that we missed something out when validating and wanted to also ask if doing more campaigns is the right step for us.
Okay, I think a couple of things here just off the top of my head. I don't think you're actually 3-sided. I think you're 2-sided because like the consumers kind of like you don't actually work with the consumers. You don't recruit them. You don't do any of that stuff, right? So I think you're actually a 2-sided kind of like place rather than 3-sided. Although consumers are kind of the end product here. So I think it's 2-sided. I think the thing that you want to validate is how many people want to do this thing, right? And so if you've been getting some nonprofits and that kind of stuff, okay, cool. And you've been getting some illustrators, okay, cool. I think that the question you're going to ask yourself is how many people are going to like want something like this? And if you can only stay in nonprofits, how big is it going to kind of be? And so you want to be able to be like, hey, are there other types of companies who want something like this? And so I would try to, I don't know if, I mean, you can continue running campaigns for the existing nonprofits, but the thing I would be trying to kind of figure out is I would try to be running campaigns for new other kind of like groups of like people, right? So, and again, if you want to turn this into kind of a venture capital thing, if you kind of pitched us and you were like, hey, you know, I'm doing nonprofits, I'd be like, cool, see if you can kind of get some of these other guys, right? So try to run campaigns with a new group of people. I think the illustrators, you don't have to like think about as much because it's like illustrators will work for anybody. And so, and I think, again, in your marketplace, I hate to say this, but I feel like the illustrators are probably have excess capacity. And so illustrators probably are always happy to take work. And so the real trick is, can you get the demand side of this kind of like figured out? And so that's the thing I would be kind of validating. Maybe one last thing I'll leave everybody with, and then I have to run off to dinner. validation comes in a lot of different kind of like ways, shapes, and forms. And so you can validate an idea, but to validate an idea is actually validating like a subset of like many different things. And you have to kind of do in each of those. And so I think sometimes when people are like, oh, I'm validating a startup, that actually means like a whole bunch of stuff, right? And so oftentimes the things that you have to validate are like, who wants my product, right? Like which kind of customer base, like in your case, it's like, it's actually pretty straightforward. It's like nonprofits, kind of like for-profits, even for-profits is their types of companies. Like, so you have to validate like who potentially wants my product. And then you also have to validate like what they care about with that product. So you may think that your product is all about A, but it's actually all about B, right? And so you have to validate like which of these things that people care about. And then you have to kind of figure out like how many people want that thing. So you can validate some group of people want a thing. You can validate what is the thing that they actually want, but then you also have to kind of figure out how many people want this thing, because if it ends up kind of being small, then that's kind of like problematic, right? And then you have to also validate what channel to reach them. So, okay, cool. You can try this LinkedIn thing, but that might not work. Maybe you have to like show up to all of these, like, I don't know, like in your case, it's like phone calls, LinkedIn. There's like, you got to figure out what all the channels are. And so there's like a million of these questions that you have to kind of validate when you're working on a startup. And I think the really challenging part for everybody here and for us when we were kind of doing it is when things don't work, you don't know which thing doesn't work. It's like, all I know is people are not buying, and people could be not buying for like 50 different things, and I don't know which 50 things it is. And so the game is like, you slowly, methodically have to kind of go through and kind of validate those like 50 things. Now, the real strategy to kind of do this is like, not all 50 of those things are equally likely. And so based on kind of what you're learning, you want to try to prioritize that list and kind of like go through, right? But I think that's like the main challenging part with validation is like, it's like a interconnected web of things that produce this output, which is nobody wants to buy or nobody wants to like sign up for this thing. And you have to kind of like untangle the web. So yeah, I think it's tricky, but very solvable. You just kind of methodically work through. Okay. By the way, I got to run off to dinner, but okay. Thank you everybody for coming and spending time on kind of like a Thursday evening. So I appreciate it. I put my email in there a bunch of times. It's just Hsu Ken at iterative.vc. If there's people on the list that I didn't get to, please send me an email. We said that we were going to help you, and I want to make sure that we're good on that. If you weren't on the list and you feel like I can help, send me an email. We're as much as possible trying to help people. So please do. But for the people that did put their names on the list, please send me an email so that I can help out.
Okay, I'm just gonna give the shill. All of you should have received an email. If you'd like to apply to Iterative for the upcoming batch, there's a special link in there. Please apply through that. You'll get a special benefit. So that's the kind of like hookup that I have for you guys. Please take advantage. So yes. Okay, that's all.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.